a bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends, and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give into the need and leave it all behind. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
All right, folks, and we're here. Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. We're going to be like this for a hot minute while things cool down. All right, so a couple things we're going to do today. First of all, there's a new merch link. Check it out when you get a chance. Real quick before we go into questionnaires and, stuff like that, there definitely, without a doubt, is something with the supply chain that I want to talk to you about, because this is not going to get any better. All right. And really, I want to kind of talk about what we may be in for, so people aren't surprised. There's a winter storm coming again in the South, in the Carolinas, Georgia, parts of Kentucky. And yesterday, I want to talk about a conversation that we had. We've been talking to some grocery store chains in these areas where there are supply chains. And the other day, people at Publix are great. Their media relations are great. And some of you who read it are right. You were able to pick it up. So in this region of the country, it's Harris Teeter, it's Publix. There are other things. But those are the main ones from the South to the Mid-Atlantic, before you get into, Mid-Atlantic. I guess you could call it Mid-Atlantic. And there's a couple photos that some people even sent back to me in response. I want to tell you how bad this thing's about to get. You remember before the holidays, I had talked to you about remarks that the CEO of Goya had made. All right. And he had said basically that they couldn't postpone this for much longer, meaning pushing it off. Bob said that basically they had suffered and incurred some of these charges, and Bob, being CEO of Goya, they had incurred these charges throughout 2021, and that come the new year, they would have to be passed to the consumer because they're out of options. And if you read the ISM indexes, you would have seen it. It's right there. You don't have to rely on financial, reporters and, market consultants who go on Fox Business to tell you what's going on. You could read them yourself from all these different industries. And given that food and groceries, really foods and stuff like that, is such a big driver of the CPI, which had hit like a 38-year high, in case nobody was watching that last week. Inflation rose by about 7% in 2021. And what Bob was saying is that's nothing. That's the tip of the iceberg. And that the bare shelves really are just a symptom of this greater, malaise, this like COVID looming thing that hangs over us all, the way we have changed our way of life, how we really bottlenecked our supply chains. There's multiple things that are driving it, but overall the sentiment is having this constant thread of some arbitrary threshold being met that leads to stricter regulations. If you're a business, you can't approve all of this CapEx just to have yourself nipped in the butt. And then all of that inventory, whatever it is that you may have, gets thrown out the window. So people basically are being cautious. That's number one. Number two, we have the issues with the supply chains, even in the ports. You have LA, not running quite as smoothly as Florida for some reason. I'll leave you to decide that. But LA is a bigger port. Newark has issues. You have labor situations all thrown in there. The vaccine mandate made it even worse. The employer mandate. Anyway, we took this picture because we were going to talk to somebody. And this is produce, which, look, there's some things there, but basic things like carrots, stuff like that, completely gone, completely off the shelf. All right. We'll move one more up. Here is some of the meats, and that's actually a couple feet away from where we had this conversation. There is a common theme here with all of these grocery stores. They're all different, but generally they're supposed to get 4, depending on the size of the store, 4 to 6 trucks. 4 is like the average per week. And each truck is supposed to carry 300 pallets, and they order stuff that they need. Now they don't get what they order. They get whatever comes. That's number one. And this is true of Harris Teeter. It's true of Publix. They're all saying the same thing. And different stores are obviously different sizes. So different stores get different trucks. But let's look at the stores that get between 4 and 6. I use 4 here as an example. It's easy to break down. They're divisible by 2. So it's easier to understand. But now, instead of 4 trucks a week with 300 pallets each, they are getting 2 trucks a month with 150 pallets each. And they had some inventory, and it's not just this store. So I saw some of these, we'll address them soon, but I saw some of these people who really are reaching to the bottom of the barrel to try to, defend their administration, their favorite administration. That's what this is about. It's about politics. Just listen and you will see the problem. It's simple. All right. Anyway, so that's meats. When you have a shortage like this, supply is low. What happens? Demand rises and prices rise, right? The overall cause of inflation is an excess amount of money in the system, all right, to be simple. But this is basic supply and demand here coming down the pike. And for the majority of 2021, energy, petroleum, stuff like that, drove a large part of the CPI. It was a primary driver of inflation. The second one was food and groceries. And that was nothing compared to what we're about to see. Because now we have these supply issues on top of the money supply issues. It's compounding. And everybody is basically telling us the same thing, which is that I said double to be fair because different meats will be different things. There was an article, I believe it was Yahoo Finance before the holidays, that said steaks will be a delicacy. That was not hyperbole.
No.
That was not hyperbolic.
Yeah.
What they're telling us is that something like a strip steak, like a New York strip steak, for instance, which is incredibly difficult for them to get at this point. They've basically burned through all of what they had. So now it's at the seat of your pants kind of thing. I can't, Laura, what was it? Was New York strip was, it's like tripling.
$39
Yes, in this area, that particularly with this store, like something like a ribeye is probably going to be around they're going to settle on like $39 a pound. Strip steaks, I think were like the least likely to rise, but it was still like double something ridiculous. Yeah, lobster was like going to be $40 a pound. It's just totally. So this is like the tip of the iceberg. And now I think we're about to see it. I really don't see. Well, it's not even me. It's talking with them. This is for the foreseeable future.
They don't even see.
They don't see. Right. A way out. So when Bob from Goya says, crapshoot, if you had to twist my arm, how much do you think the price increase is going to be? 40%. That was being generous. And if, let's say, Goya's canned goods, are an average of 40% more, they would be on the lower end of the spectrum on where some of these things are going to rise. Eggs, another one. Milk, another one. Speaking of milk, as a matter of fact, we actually took a picture of that. Yeah,
that was fabulous.
We actually got that. And I want to show you some of the pictures that some people sent. That's the area with milk. Milk and cheese, orange juice, by dairy and eggs. There was like 2 things there of, I think that's cottage cheese, I think, or something. It's like, that's it, And then as I'm tweeting these, which the media said was is basically fake news, I get a slew of everybody else's tweets. And that's the paper plate section. By the way, Walmart was just as bad. We'll talk about Walmart too. That's, just going down. That's frozen foods. Here's another one. I mean, so people are asking me whether or not this is a staffing problem. Here's another Walmart. This is what the Walmart we went into looked like. By the way, this is somebody else's. Somebody sent us this. This is at home Aldrich 69, something like that. That's their photo. But that is very much what look at one can of Goya. I'm laughing. It's not funny. I don't mean to make light of it. But it goes on and it goes on and it goes on and it goes on and it goes on. Look at that. I mean, it's incredible. Here's Rome, Georgia. A lot of stuff, by the way. Georgia, we hear you, which is why we cited that. Georgia is also having significant problems. So the bottom line is here, this is not going to get better. Unfortunately, it's just not. It wasn't a staffing issue because people were waiting around. In fact, the store that we were at had been waiting on that second truck for the month, which is going to have to last them for the rest of January. And it didn't show up, right? It never came. So
they didn't even call.
They didn't call. They had no explanation, because they really, at this point, they know the explanation. The explanation is simple. We don't have it. It's not there yet. Your shipment got bumped. That's it. So in the future, unless something changes significantly, we got a problem. And the worst thing about these crises is that this gets worse over time. This doesn't get better, it gets worse. And that's just the reality of it. Which may explain, speaking of which, let's stop that. I want to bring in something else. Today is Pete Buttigieg's birthday. I made a joke on Twitter, Dolly Parton turned 76 today, some notable birthdays. Pete Buttigieg turns 15. Like, this guy, it's really not funny, though. This guy was not qualified for this job. He was given this job as a payoff. He was bribed to get out of the Democratic primary. He was given the transportation secretary position. He took it. He had no prospects of being elected to anything. Indiana was not going to have him. Even his own town didn't really like him. I don't know if you guys remember that poll or not, but the poll, when he was running, somebody did conduct a poll of his hometown, which is not a big city. So it's not even like he was Rudy Giuliani, who ran basically the biggest city in the country and had executive experience. So therefore, I think I'm qualified to run for president. This was a guy who ran as a young man for mayor of a rather small city in Indiana who didn't do a good job. He didn't do well on crime. The police didn't like him. The fire department didn't like him. He didn't do anything well. In fact, even the African American voters in that community, in that poll, did not have good things to say about him. What on earth gives these people the impression they're better than they are? What gives these privileged, entitled, little sniveling yuppies the impression that they can do a job that they cannot? Because this mentality is hurting people. This incompetence that comes typically accompanies this mentality is hurting people. This backroom deal Barack Obama made to bribe him to get out of the race so Joe Biden wouldn't lose to Bernie Sanders is hurting people. Their entitledness is hurting average people who are not entitled. So it's not even a live or let live situation. Live and let be, kind of thing. You do you, I'll do me. Their existence hurts the non-entitled. Their existence threatens the health and well-being of the non-entitled. Because if this continues, you will not be able to be healthy. Eating is a very important part of overall health and well-being. What you eat, how often you eat. I'm serious. Diet is very important. If you're not able to get, I don't know, natural eggs or something, Eggland 18 pack or whatever, and you're forced to buy Scrabble because that's the only thing there. I swear to God, that was there yesterday. A log of that. Laura didn't even know what it was. I only did because of the army. That's how I knew what it was.
It's just wrong to have that in a carton.
That's it, man.
That's not right.
I mean, we're going to go back to the days of spam and stuff. Can you try again to see if that cooled down? And if not, we'll just pop it out and let it go, because I do want to show it before we get there. Anyway, 2021 was not a good year economically for people. And that could explain, we see Joe Biden's numbers. Quinnipiac has him at 33. I don't know, guys. I was still skeptical of Quinnipiac. And look at like the Fox poll, for instance, as well. I mean, this is a poll now that it seems to me these guys, there were some of these people that were always very favorable, or at least somewhat, to Republicans, but then under the era of Donald Trump became the most egregious D-slanted polls we have. And now Trump is gone, and all of a sudden we're back to these like insane kind of they're not insane. Look, I wouldn't be shocked. I can't wait to get out this weekend. I think we're going to just start this weekend with the public polling project. We're not fully funded, but we're real close. So go ahead and, share, contribute, do what you can. Because there are really some key questions that I want answered. We're definitely going to go the route. A lot of people had questions about really two things. One, the ideas surrounding what we're talking about now, the supply chain issues. Do people have a hard time finding products? And then two, people want to know, it still didn't pop up. People want to know whether, and I could try Wirecast. I just don't want to because I'm afraid it's going to, be too much. People want to know whether or not this country is really divided over what to do. How far, that Rasmussen poll took a lot of people's breaths away. And I got a lot of requests on locals about adding something like that. They kind of want to see where where this is going. I mean, for people who don't know what we're talking about, the Rasmussen poll essentially found that Democrats favor putting Americans into camps who are unvaccinated. Something that really takes a lot of people. No, that sounded right. Something that takes a lot of people, takes them back. Because it's not that short of a distance from inhumanity. You start putting people based on vaccination status, based on ethnicity, based on faith, whatever it may be. You start separating people from society. And ladies and gentlemen, that goes to a dark place real quick.
Real fast.
Real fast. In any event, I also want to see if there's any natural movement. We did see it in the fall poll. If there's any natural movement and shift in party affiliation, for instance. All right. I've been talking, and I did talk to Rasmussen and others about this. It's kind of interesting. And we did absolutely see it. So have they. What do we mean? It's like people we know that may have said they were unaffiliated before, or whatever it may be, are now saying, there are more of them saying that they are actually Republican. All right. So it's a party affiliation fluid change, not static like registration. However, when we did the National Voter File Analysis Model, it was pretty clear that there was a slip for Democrats. And we weren't even being very strict with matching records or disqualifying certain records that we know really are not eligible. The number overall, 197 million, is a ridiculous size electorate. It's not 197 million. And even without strict applications, we still got just around D+4. Rasmussen now is about D+2. That's where we were at roughly as well. Gallup put out a story that I shared on Locals that I'm going to read right now. All right. And I'm going to make it big enough so you can actually see it. All right. On average, Americans' political party preferences as 2021 look similar to prior years. On average, listen to what they're warning you about, though, the average. Wait. With slightly more U.S. adults identifying as Democrats or leaning Democratic, 46%, than identifying as Republicans or leaning Republican. All right. Now, what's important here is that they are saying the average. Then there's a warning in this. All right. However, the general stability for the full year average obscures a dramatic shift over the course of 2021 from a 9-point advantage for Democrats, Democratic advantage in the first quarter, to a rare 5-point Republican edge in the fourth quarter, 47-42. Here's a little graph here. These results are based on aggregate data, blah, 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 from all of Gallup's U.S. telephone surveys in 2021. By the way, I got to be honest. They're kind of confusing me with methodology because they had sent out this release about methodology last year. Mm-hmm. And they were saying that they were going to mailers. Like they were overly relying on mailers now. I don't know. And I digress. They're saying here, they're saying here that this is telephone surveys. Okay, here we are. Gallup asked Americans in interviews whether they identify politically as Republican or Democrat. I'm not sure. I'm trying to look back here. I don't think there was ever a 5-point or 4. Don't think so. Anyway, independents are still the biggest group, right? The combined percentage of party identifiers and leaners give a measure of the related strength of the two parties, which brings me to something when we talk about the questionnaire. I want to add leaners, okay? Which we do. We do, you know? Yeah, we technically do. We just don't show the split with them because I think it's not realistic. So is it realistic that each party is 47, 42, and then, the rest are independents? When an exit pollster or the exit polls come out, actually voter analysis does lean people. The new, they're not really new, but the AP, Fox News voter analysis, they do lean people. But the bottom line is it's not really realistic. And when we look and study electorates and the party composition of the electorate, nobody ever really looks like 47% Democrat, 42 with leaners. But the reason I want to do it is be simple which way is the wind blowing? Especially when it relates, obviously, to independence. Which way are they leaning more? And we'll actually show you that question. We'll generally say which party most closely aligns with your views, or or do they equally align, or do you have little in common with either? All right. And by the way, I just want to say, without saying names, you don't ever open a survey asking somebody's party identification.
That's not how you run a survey.
I just want to say this to clear the air for something. Little inside talk here. You never ask party affiliation at the beginning of a survey. The voter screen comes first, even if you're sourced with a voter file. Why? People lie. You don't know who you're talking to. You're not 100% sure that you're talking to the right person. People lie. Party is a demographic. That's what it is. It's essentially a demographic, folks. I mean, it's ridiculous. I've never heard of that in my life. Never. You think you did it, Laura? You think you did? You think you did it?
I think so.
I don't see it showing up.
What?
She's so frustrated. That's all right. Take your time. It's all right. Truth be told, hardly ever on the damn camera anyway during these shows. I know everybody's just dying to see my ugly mug.
They love you.
Well, she'll get there. She'll get there.
I think the wire won't get there.
I think that maybe it is potentially that. There are other ones if you need them.
So kind as to throw one to me.
I'm not sure where they are.
Smooth operator.
Yeah, I know. You know that little draw, the little one. Yeah, that's it. Once was here. It was once once was lost, but now it's still not found, Laura.
Go ahead, continue.
All right, but anyway,
I made you digress.
Yeah, that's all right. It's okay. Anyway, yeah, we're gonna add that, and it's a demographic. Party is a demographic. It goes in. So is ideology. By the way, it's technically a demographic. We don't put it in. It's not called. And if you know this, if you want, follow how we build the surveys and you follow what we do, I don't put them into the demographic section. It comes right before demographics in a little section called party political identification. But it's still technically a demographic. You can't lead there. Well, that's not true. In some cases, I have seen people lead with something like gender, and that's debatable. It's a different school of thought. The voter screens, both registered and likely, really do have to come first. I just simply have never heard of right off the bat asking whether somebody is a Republican or a Democrat. Not that I never heard of it. It's terrible practice. And then if you want to lean them, do you just do that and then get into the questioning? That's ridiculous. You're already infusing party and political. You're already infusing political identification before you ask the questions that you're trying to really get the truth from.
It's like asking
bad
a woman
practice.
what her weight is. You just don't do it. Or her age.
Not right away, anyway. You got to date her first. Right? There you go. You got to court her first. You can't just lean in and kiss her. You got to give her a little bit of time. You got to work your way into it. Same thing when asking about party. Can't do that. You get an incredibly high drop-off rate. That's number one. And number two, I don't like infusing the political or any kind of political leanings or tainting it at all until you get those questions that must be clean from bias or clean from either response biases or associations or whatever it may be. All right. You want me to check? I'll check. No,
I don't see it.
it's just not. It may be them. It may not be you. Honest to God.
I don't think it is because I'm changing.
I know. It may be them. Once in a while, this happens. That's why I really would rather go back. Anyway, both the 9-point advantage in the first quarter and the 5-point Republican edge in the fourth quarter are among the largest Gallup has measured for each party in any quarter since it began regularly measuring party identification and leaning in 1991. The Democratic lead in the first quarter was the largest for the party since the fourth quarter of 2012, look, does this sound familiar? And actually keep in mind when you see these dates, why they're significant. When Democrats also had a 9-point advantage. Democrats held larger double-digit advantages in isolated quarters between 92 and 99, and nearly continuously between mid-2006 and early 2009. Actually, though, through 92 to 99, we had the election of a Democratic president and a re-election of a Democratic president. In 92, he defeated an incumbent Republican. He never received a majority of the vote.
Nope.
So it's a bit of a phenomena that when parties win, they get a bump. And how quickly do they slide is a little bit telling. Or at least it was, once upon a time. In 94, Republicans obviously had an incredible victory in the House, which, by the way, before I get into this, and look, between 06 and early 2009, they stated what happened in early 2009. Barack Obama took the oath of office. They get a bump. And by the way, the media very dishonestly used this phenomena to try to claim that independents were swinging away from Republicans because of Trump en masse. And in truth, that's not really what happened. He cannibalized his independent leaners. In fact, he got them even to register in states like Florida. They didn't swing against Donald Trump. He just turned them into Republicans. The media had a very dishonest narrative, and each state was different. The GOP has held much as a 5-point advantage in a total of only 4 quarters since 1991. The Republicans held a 5-point advantage of party ID and leaning in early 95, after winning control of the House of Representatives for the first time since the 1950s. Yes, for those who don't know, there was 4 decades of uninterrupted Democratic leadership in the House. 4 decades. Why? Gerrymandering. Redistricting. They dominated the boundaries of districts for most of the 20th century. Republicans only, in fact, even when they had some wins in the 90s, temporary, and in the early 2000s because of 9/11, they didn't play hardball. They didn't try to sue. They didn't try to, Jerry. Not really. It was 2010 when Republicans really tried to begin the idea of, we need to Jerry some of this back. And both sides Jerry. If you're going to call it jerrying, you might as well call it jerrying for both. Because none of it is about redistricting in a fair way. It's about power. Raw power. Anyway, Republicans had a larger advantage only in the first quarter of 1991 after the U.S. victory in the Persian Gulf War led by then-President George Herbert Walker Bush. So with the exception of a few little kind of glitches, the pattern is very clear, and it's usually after these wins, these victorious moments for each of the parties. Then why at this point was there such a significant swing? Not just the size, which technically, if you look at it's technically the largest. Why did this happen before? Why did this happen during the first year of a new president who supposedly defeated an incumbent? This one stands out as not really following along the rest of the pattern. This one stands out. All right. Shifting party preferences in 21 are likely tied to changes in popularity of the 2 men who served as president during the year. I don't think so. He finished out a single term in January after being defeated in the 2020 election with a 34% job approval rating, the lowest of his term. I seriously doubt it. His popularity fell more than 10 points from Election Day as the COVID-19 infection and deaths reached then record highs. He refused to acknowledge the result of the election, and his supporters rioted at the Capitol on January 6th in an attempt to prevent Congress from counting the 2020 Electoral College votes. Ladies and gentlemen, Democrats rioted in 2017, in January of 2017. Democrats absolutely rioted in the Capitol. The only difference is that the Capitol Police actually did their job, and security that Roy Blunt hired did their job. That has to be said. And if you're going to inject these things, inject both sides, really. Democrat Joe Biden enjoyed relatively high ratings after taking office on January 20th. He did not. I'm just disagreeing nicely with Gallup here. He did not enjoy high ratings at the beginning of his term. The very first poll we ever took of Joe Biden right after he was inaugurated was 48%. His approval rating started to climb when he was handed on a silver platter Operation Warp Speed. And the vaccination rollout resulted in him getting a very strong approval rating on COVID, basically 60% almost. And it pulled his overall approval up. Which led me to say consistently, right? This approval rating is artificial. It's not even honeymoon. It's artificial. And once people realize that he's not going to do any better on COVID, it's going to collapse. Listeners know this. They know this story. A summer surge of infections tied to the Delta variant of the coronavirus, or actually, like I said, the infections came, then the vaccine, infections declined, and then they're getting into the summer of Delta, remember? Tied to the Delta variant, made it clear the pandemic was not over, and Biden's approval rating began to sag. Later, the chaotic U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan caused Biden's ratings to fall further, into the low 40s. I think even without Afghanistan, Biden's approval rating would have continued to fall. I really do. So with Trump's approval rating at a low point and Biden relatively popular in the first quarter, 49% of Americans identified as Democrats or Democrat-leaning, compared to 40% who were Republicans or Republican-leaning. In the second quarter, affiliation stayed high for Dems, while Republican affiliation began to recover, increasing to 43%. It was in the third quarter that Democrats, it's not only that Republicans continued to increase, Democrats continued to fall. From 49 to 45, or started to fall, not continued. From 49 to 45, and then Biden's ratings began to falter. There was no meaningful change, they're saying, in Republican affiliation until the fourth quarter, which flipped as Republicans made gains from 44 to 47, and Democrat affiliation fell from 45 to 42. They're injecting the possibility here that Virginia and New Jersey help facilitate that. Isn't that rather backwards? Like, don't you guys agree that that's rather backwards? Obviously, something drove those wins and near wins in New Jersey, but with the governor's race, something drove that before. They were voting not just Republican, really, they were voting anti-Democrat. I'm not sure that pushes people to later identify. I think in people's minds, you begin to either move away from a certain party, identifying with a certain party, or you solidify yourself with a certain party. Then you go and vote. Right? You know what I'm saying? Like, it seems like, which I guess it's a chicken before the egg question, but it's really not. It's more like the cart before the horse. Like, the cart's not going to move unless the horse is already walking. Affiliation isn't. Elections aren't going to be won unless affiliation was already shifting. Make sense? Let me get a sip of water.
Take that sip. Makes sense to me, babe.
Yeah, and I'm not looking at the comments, but I just think that's a rather weak. Listen, I was just going to send a text. This pisses me off. Ladies and gentlemen, people doing this, repeatedly calling during the show when they know it's the show, really pisses me off. I find almost nothing to be more disrespectful than them disrespecting the audience by interrupting us. And, you will not get a call back if you do that. Now you know. Right. Because if you can't, respect what we're doing here. You know, you guys all tune in every show.
Invest your time.
You invest your time. I invest work in it to do it. We do the show, and then some schmuck calls in the middle of it 3 times in a row. All right. So now Gallup's saying maybe the GOP advantage is starting to ease, as their last monthly estimate from December showed the two parties even at about 46 Republican, 44 Democrat. And it's funny because in the fall poll, which was November, a month before, they're saying they got 46, 44. We got like D plus 1.5, D plus 2. And I actually could have seen an R plus 1 or an R plus 2 scenario. You know, I was being, here we go, take this out of context. I was being conservative, and I didn't want to to allow any dramatic changes unless, you know, it really called for it. And again, we really are, I'm not sure where Gallup is, I'd have to look it up, but we really are on the side of the debate that says you really should, if you have to wait for party, then you did something wrong. Then you didn't collect enough responses among some group in some area. And typically in my experience, that is either region. Well, it's mostly region. It really is. In certain ages. And then, of course, genders, of course. But region really is the primary driver of that. You know, how many of your Republicans came from certain areas, right? If your Republican sample is largely like metro and urban, did you do something wrong? If Democrats disproportionately make up your rural sample, did you do something wrong? Anyway, so we'll see. We'll keep an eye on this. They tend to do this monthly, even though they're talking about quarter. They do have monthly numbers on this, and we'll keep an eye on it. If you look down to how far back did they go? They didn't go that far back. Even down here, right? Oh, they did. So around the 2014 election, it was a Democrat advantage. It was pretty close. Democrats had about a 5-point advantage when Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton. But this is, again, these are like, I guess they're averages for the year. And that really doesn't give you the full picture, because if I remember correctly, I think it was like D plus 1 in November of 2016, or October, the October before it was like D plus 1. So the average absolutely does skew it. You can see, though, in 2014 was a good election, midterm election for Republicans, but 2010 was like a wipeout, right? It's much closer. We're looking much closer to, like, the pattern appears very close to be following the 2010 midterm elections, which would be bad news for Democrats, but you never know. Just have to keep an eye on it, you know? All right. With that said, I am going to take a quick break, get my voice back. I guess we can't fit this, huh?
To reset that link and redo it?
You know what it is? I'll tell you right now what it is. It's StreamYard.
Yeah,
and if I leave the dash and come back,
I pulled every wire, put brand new wires in. I reset the camera.
I mean, folks, how about this? Because it is driving Lauren nuts.
No, it's not.
I'm going to play the break. No, I'm going to play the break. I'm going to leave the dash. But look, every time it's crashed on me and I come back, I'm not going to end the broadcast. I'm just going to leave the dashboard and come back while the music is playing. Because every time it's crashed, I've been able to come back in and remember?
All right, let's
right? Yeah. All right. So we're going to do Bad Habit. We're back from the break. Want to talk a little bit about, it's not an I told you so moment. Democrats are absolutely terrified of Donald Trump's return. And I told you they were going to prosecute him any way they could. They'll do whatever they can to stop this man from running for office. They know they can't. Look, how much can they pull off what they pulled off in 2020? How much could they do it? I just don't think they can. By the way, Wisconsin, a judge ruled in Wisconsin the election was illegal. Drop boxes and harvests of any kind are not legal. So that's out. They can't do that in Wisconsin anymore. You know from their actions that they're not confident. You know from their actions that they are terrified they're going to get drummed. I told you this, guys. I mean, I'll speak more about this when I get back, but if you would have told me in 2019 that I would be polling a 2024 rematch or something, and it would be Trump +8, I would tell you you're nuts. Or even Trump +5. Maybe a Trump 1-3. Maybe. And now that is the low end of even media polls. Trump has led, I think, in the last, 36 polls. He's led in 32 or something. That's unheard. And I really am not a believer in Republicans' ability to win big margins of the popular vote. I have said for a long time, I think the Electoral College and the popular vote, that division is going to continue to widen unless Republicans make up grounds with Hispanics. Unless the working Hispanic really does become part of the Republican coalition for the long term. Then that can change. And if you look at the polling, that is in fact what drove that. Yeah, he was beating Biden with whites, it was 56-34 or something like that, 36. That's really not enough. Not to have a lead that big. That had to be coming from somewhere else, and it was coming from Hispanics, working Hispanics. All right, I'm going to take a break. We'll play Bad Habit. Don't forget, to subscribe on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. On Rumble, hit the subscribe button. Give us one of those little pluses. That'd be great. The best place to follow us, of course, is peoplespundit.locals.com, which we will be talking more in detail about the questionnaire. And when I submit them and show them to you guys, I show them to the locals community. It's Wednesday. The goal is to be ready to go Friday night. Approved, ready to go Friday night. All right, but we're not fully there, so I would definitely appreciate it if you shared it around. Even if another, what is it? Not really. It's like $1,500 or something like that. Something around that. Yeah, but either way, I feel like I'm gonna do it. All right. So with that in mind, Getter, definitely. Sorry, Laura. At People's Pundit on Getter. Here's Bad Habit. Be back in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. Keep your fingers crossed this works.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends, and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear overnight. Just to give in to the need and leave it all behind. Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
And I told you, it was StreamYard. I'm a little glitchy though here, turning red like crazy. But I can share, and you can see me at least in the corner here, which I'm going to do. All right, let's open up. Oh, it's coming through there. Mickey Mouse. I'll take it if that's what it takes. I'll do it. Mickey Mouse. Got to do it, guys. There he is. There I am, Jay. A little glitchy, but I'm here. All right, so let's start with, and it probably will do that from time to time until it catches up here. I'm trying to kill everything that is taking power. I want to open up the questionnaire. And I'm going to show you basically what I do, which is take the public polling project's prior questionnaire and copy it. Okay? What's up?
The lower third in the wire.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry about that. That's me. All right. Boom. Boom. Oop. No, I don't want that. There we go, guys. All right. And give me a second. I want to kill that monitor. I don't like hearing myself. Do not. I'm laughing.
Easy. I'll stop myself.
I just don't. You know? Never did. It's just it's annoying and distracting. Here we go. Let's see. Yeah. Get the audio up. Boom. Now we're gone. Now because it's like I hear myself twice and it's freaking annoying. All right. So basically, I just open up the prior questionnaire from the public polling project and I copy it because it's the same questions. And we have question banks and stuff like that. This time, though, there's a lot of stuff I'm going to junk out of it, and we're going to start that from basically scratch. All right, so I'm really taking a risk here of pulling it up with this live going, but what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You've already dealt with it this long, right? You'll do it again. And I'll be back if it does. So we do the public. I'll type in public. I'm going to do this before I bring it up. And we're going to look for the fall one. What would you like to know? I want to copy. That's right. Duh. Public and fall. Searching now for the old one. I just would like, though, however, to pull up public polling project, winter 21. Winter 2021. Search for that one. Copy a survey. We will ask about boosters. We'll keep up because we need our trackers. I don't really think, what do you think? Favorability ratings, do we really need them at this point? Again, for congressional leaders? Nah. What's the general consensus, Laura? What do people say?
I'll tell you when I see them come in.
I say No. But, I take your suggestions, folks. There we go. I'm going to copy the links just to make them easy. I always bring them over. They're like dummy links, redirects, dummy logic. So, if somebody says, "Oh yeah, I voted in 2020," and we know they did or didn't, they'll get redirected and asked, "Who did they vote for?" This will always, from this point on, since it's a new thing, though, that I believe people lie with that. And that you really can't, like when somebody says we waited to the 2020 vote preference, I get really skeptical because if Joe Biden's doing bad and somebody voted for him, they don't want to admit they voted for him. Not everybody will. Now, there will be a lot of Democrats who will happily say they voted for Joe Biden because they didn't vote for Donald Trump. Good for me. Give me a round, give me a pat on the back. But there will be a lot of people who didn't vote for Donald Trump who will say, I voted for Trump. There could be both. There's a lot of literature on this, and there's a lot to basically to conclude that I'm right. I don't know where people got it in their head that you can wait for that. Secondly, if it's a registered voter poll, there theoretically should be some new vote in there. Whether it's 2% or it's 10%, there theoretically should be people who did not vote in 2020. So how could you possibly wait it to 2020 vote preference? You would have to have a likely voter screen in place, and really what you're really saying is that you only are applying this to people who voted in 2020. It's like you're making an admission that your poll is not a wider registered voter poll. Now, you can give the difference between registered voter and likely voter, but if you wait by vote preference, there's no way not to exclude those. You can have empty values. To get really mathematical here, you're going to have empty values on your weight variable. Null, 0. And you can't calculate that. It's kind of ridiculous. All right, my creative brain has titled this the public polling project winner 2021. See how creative I get?
That's so creative.
Isn't it?
It's like crazy.
It's so crazy. All right, so let's look at...
Obviously, I didn't help with this one.
Obviously, Laura's creative mind was not included in this. All right, let's do this. Because we're going to take a look at... Hopefully, it can take all of this. We're going to take a look at what was in this. And then we're going to collectively decide what to dump and what not to dump. All right? So here's a likely voting screen, vote history. I like to do it all because I like to track likely voters over the course of a cycle. It makes it easier to get your finger on the pulse of the electorate than it would be if you were just tracking registered voters the entire time and then you decided, no, now I'm going to move to a likely voter model. You'll figure out that you'll figure out that there are some things that maybe keep coming up and they won't slip past you. All right. Like, for instance, what's an example of that? In 2016, there was a group of voters who were not really voters. And it was like not going to be this like ridiculously large electorate, but definitely was going to be bigger than 2012. And actually 137 million, which is what it was in 2016, was a pretty big electorate. Historically, it was a monster. 2020 was like unrealistic, frankly. But 2016 was a big electorate. It was millions upon millions. People thought that from 2000 to 04, that was a jump. And from 04 to 08, that was a jump. On a historical scale, 16 was a large electorate. And this group, it was like 8 to 12%, were saying overwhelmingly they were going to vote for Donald Trump. That's in fact why they were going to vote. A lot of the other pollsters who weren't tracking likely voters throughout over the course of the time didn't believe them and screened them out. They looked at their vote history and they said, oh, these people don't vote. So, yeah, Trump would get them if they came out, but they're not going to come out. They made assumptions about the electorate instead of listening to the electorate.
Surprise.
If you do your job right and you listen to the electorate, it will tell you what it's going to look like. All right, vote history we have in there. Direction of country, we should definitely keep. Presidential and vice presidential. Job approval. The usual issues when it comes to Joe Biden. Let me put this big, actually, so you guys can see it. It's a little bit small. Let me take another. Sorry, I got a scratchy throat today. Yeah, what's her? All right, so immigration, border security, crime, economy and jobs, the pandemic, U.S.-China relations, and foreign policy. This will be randomized, by the way. The order in which each issue is asked is randomized. I don't know why. When I, print out or download a PDF version of the questionnaire, whether it's going to be on phone or SMS or online, I don't know why it doesn't tell you which ones are going to be randomized. But it should. So I'm trying to figure out, there is a way to, not everybody uses Word, but there is a way to get a Word version, which is like, generic. So it looks less internet-y, I guess is the good way to say that, like less survey panel-y. Yeah. And if I do that, then I can at least write in parentheses at the end of a question, randomized or something. So everybody knows. So it's really clear that the questions, the responses are randomized. All right. And by the way, responses are randomized. Questions are not. Questions should be in an order in which it is appropriate to ask them, such as you cannot randomize the order of questions, so you ask a controversial question before you ask about something like an approval rating or a ballot preference. I am talking to somebody specifically here.
Well, you're also helping those that are looking to go into the field too. Like, there is a certain order in which you ask questions. It's like you don't ask about party and then turn around and
expect to get an honest answer. Yeah, or you don't ask about a controversial issue.
Yes.
And then expect to get an honest answer about
Later
somebody
on.
maybe that's connected to that issue, right? Or, definitely politicians have position. Yeah. You have to avoid tainting the survey with bias before or at any time, really. But even when you get to controversial stuff, all of the key, what's the word I'm looking for? Impartial responses must have been given by then. All right, so let's keep that, right? I think we all agree. Let's see what Kamala Harris's approval rating is, too. This, I think we can dump. Does everybody agree we can dump congressional leaders? Because I am trying to make room just to show you. If we were to... Is it share results? Give you an idea. Let's test. Just to give you guys an idea, estimated length of time is 9 minutes. The fatigue score is still rather low, but accessibility is high, which is good. But 9 minutes is a long survey, folks. That where I am. I'm 6 to 8 minute is the high mark for me. And I did this one large because I was trying to put as much as I could to appease everybody. And I didn't like how many times, it wasn't a bad drop off because we kind of hold our hand throughout the survey, but I just don't like the duration of the survey being that long. So, can we all agree that we can cut congressional favorability ratings? It's something we track, but it's not something we need to track all the time. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone agree, right? Is that general consensus in the comment section, Laura?
Nobody's disagreeing right now.
Okay. So. Especially on locals, check, the locals chat. I killed everything, guys, the streams, so I didn't, have an issue. Okay, it's gone. And I could always add it back because it is a question that's in the library, all right? Actually, no, this one was a different version of it, so...
Somebody
Let
said
me
I
add
like
this.
favorability for congressional leaders, both because we're headed into midterms.
Okay, we'll see what makes the cut, what doesn't. I'll leave it for now.
Okay.
Only because I'm not sure what other questions are there that could be removed.
Also, would like to see the continuation of how unpopular McCarthy and McConnell are
Okay.
because of leadership.
Yeah, it does make sense. Did you see the ridiculous Gallup poll for Kevin McCarthy? Guys, Kevin McCarthy is not popular. Okay?
We could always dream.
It's kind of ridiculous. Really was. I don't know what their shtick was there, but the fact of the matter is, a quarter to a third, for as long as I've been asking, doesn't even know who he is. And then when there is more knowledge of him, it's not great. Obviously, we're going to leave the generic ballot. Hypothetical 2024. Yeah.
Somebody wants to know if they can make a question about Rona McDaniel is hurting fundraising. Could it be made generic? Like, has Rona being the RNC chair or Tom Perez being the DNC chair caused you not to donate to a party? I guess they're trying to see, like, if funding is being hurt.
Let me think about that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure enough people would know, like it could be a question you ask like each base. So after they tell us their party, maybe we funnel like off. Yeah, maybe use logic, yes, branch them off into, that's possible. Right. Let me think about that. How it would be able to be, portrayed without
bias.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm not sure we need.
Jamie Harrison is DNC chair now, not Perez.
Yeah, Perez is gone. Yeah. Something tells me that Democrats would be, that wasn't required. I'll tell you what, that was a bit of a mistake there. It doesn't matter because people obviously answered it. They don't have an option to move forward without it, so we got lucky there. But that should have definitely been a required answer. I think we can almost take Harris off of this. Harris is a weak candidate.
Who likes her?
I mean, she polled even worse than Joe Biden did, and ironically, Donald Trump in the last survey won more of the black vote against Kamala Harris than he did Joe Biden.
It's a shame.
Even though he's basically doubling his vote share from last time. Definitely the most important voting issue. Somebody wanted to add doing it right now, okay? Absolutely. Immigration, we can add. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. With this, we'll add immigration in there. Immigration and border security. There was something else somebody had asked me about.
And Faye, I just wanted to say that comment that I just posted, very smart. She says she doesn't give to a party, she gives to a candidate.
Yeah.
It is the only way to ensure that
very smart
actually gets.
Very, very smart. We should have a follow-up for the mandates, or did we not? Let's see. That was the ranking. And then most important follow-up, that's for, let me just quickly see if we had most important follow-up for, we did not, huh? We're going to have to add a COVID follow-up. I'm thinking, I love ranked choice. I'll tell you what, guys, if we can't figure out, and I'm going to put immigration on here for now, but if we can't figure out how to display it correctly anyway, all right, because it's not great in MarketSite. If we can't figure out how to do it anyway, I'm going to probably get rid of ranked choice. I think it's probably best. I like them. And I think they offer a lot. It offers a lot of insight because whether or not an issue comes within the top 3, when you ask them to rank it, you'll see which issues do move around quite a bit. It's like someone's second choice or third choice. And it gives you the rank distribution score. That's honestly, I always thought, gives you more insight. And then also, too, I'm going to add a follow-up to COVID, which is basically, I have it actually read. I don't want to come off the screen because I don't want you guys to lose where we're at. But generally going to ask people, where are you? As it relates to coronavirus, mandates, vaccines being your most important issue, which would you say comes closer to your view? Which is that, they're too strict, mitigation policies are too strict, or they are not strict enough. And why did that change, by the way? You notice that? This needed to be an other that for the online people need to be able to write in. Huh. Why is that like that? Group option, and maybe a totally different one. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's another option, another NA option write-in required. Nope, it's not doing it. Oh, yeah, it did. I guess when you copy it, then it doesn't do it right. All right, and we get rid of this. Goodbye. Okay. This way we can make cool word clouds. That's how we made those word clouds. So if you're doing it on a phone, you can say, okay, speak after the recording, and then text-to-speech takes it and puts it into text format so we can read it. Online is much simpler, where they can just write it in, and then it comes out in a word cloud. Every single one is comma separated. We do have to go through them in case there's people who misspell on writing, or text-to-speech is usually pretty good. It identifies what people are saying, and then it puts it, into the correct, words and format. There's certain ways that somebody can mention the same thing different ways. Like somebody wants to vote against Trump, they could say voting against Trump, or somebody would say to stop Trump. I'm anti-Trump, right? So that's really all the same thing, and we have to go through them and make sure. Otherwise, they'll just end up on the word cloud as a separate response, and that's not really right. By the way, did you see the word cloud for Quinnipiac's poll with Biden? Weak, I think, was number one. It was like big word, weak, right in the middle. That's not good. I'd rather be called some of the names that Donald Trump was called rather than weak.
Weak, yes.
That's like the ultimate slap, man. All right. Let me get that COVID question. So something like, yeah, here we go. Specifically regarding COVID, vaccinations, et cetera, which would you say comes closer to your view? And I'm going to add a question. I'm going to put logic on it. So only show this question based on answers to previous questions. All right. And we're going to think about which is most important to your vote. They said COVID. It really is that simple, guys. All right. And we're going to do this. And it is required. Let's call it mitigation policies to contain the pandemic are getting too strict and hurting the economy and infringing on freedoms. Or mitigation policies to contain the pandemic aren't strict enough, and mandates take priority over the economy and freedoms. I'll look at that. I'll look at that more in detail a little bit, and we'll see. Let me just make sure that that's correct. Right. So here we are. If they choose cost of living, then they're going to ask them, or inflation, they're going to ask them specifically about one of the CPI drivers. And if they say COVID, then they're going to be asked about the mitigation policies, whether they believe they're too strict and are hurting the economy and infringing on freedoms, or whether they believe that they're not strict enough and mandates take priority over the economy and freedoms. Basically trying to get an understanding. Last time, people who chose COVID, mandates, vaccinations, last time the gap between Trump and Biden on those, among those people, and the gap between the generic Republican and Democrat among those people was not that big. I think it was 8 for one and maybe 12 points for the other. And that really compares to last year, or now I keep saying last year because it's January. That really compares to November 2020, right before the election, when we were polling. If you chose coronavirus, you were like a 2-1 Biden voter, if that, at least, sometimes 3-1, depending on the state, except for Florida, Ohio, Iowa, Texas, Pennsylvania, I believe. Right? Right. Moving on. Yeah, the economic voting index is an absolute must. All right, so what are your general thoughts here, guys, about, we can leave the tracker in, see about the boosters, the adverse effects, I really would like to know. Do you want to leave? I don't think we need to ask about mandates anymore. I think it's very clear people oppose the mandates now. But do you want to ask about how much trust do you have in the safety and the efficacy of the vaccine? Do you want to ask about that? Give Laura your opinion while I move on. I'm definitely killing the question on the Laura. We don't. Do you support or oppose each of the following measures regarding the coronavirus vaccine? The mandate. Mandating for kids in schools. Mandating for universities. I really don't think we need that anymore. What I'd like to replace it with is something along the lines, like a lot of you said on Locals, when you saw the Rasmussen poll, you were like, is it really true? Do you really think that's the case? What?
You're on Don Jr.'s Instagram.
What? Somebody said I'm on Don Jr.'s Instagram.
No, I'm on Don Jr.'s Instagram, and that's your post about the Trumps are being targeted for prosecution.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about, you know what? While we do this, I'm going to kill this. You guys give us your feedback. And in light of Don Jr. putting me on the Instagram, it's 100% true. Hold on. Let me can we cut the shit? Pardon my French. Can we cut the shit?
Crap.
It's true. Everybody knows the Democrats are terrified of Donald Trump. Before the holiday, they were everybody from a moderate Republican to Democrats and their friends were hyperventilating, right?
Mm-hmm.
Gershon wrote an article in CNN about it. Bushy speechwriter. I think we're all going to have to start preparing ourselves for the inevitability of Donald Trump's triumphant return in 2024 with a supermajority Republican legislature. And God help us all. God help you crooks. God help the stock boy at Publix, who's going to have to stock the shelves again. Which is part of what I put on that tweet yesterday. I'll trade you a mean tweet for a gallon of milk, man.
Amen. Or a steak that's not $40 a pound.
Milk's going to be like,
I
feel like it's
5
Alaska.
mean tweets for steak to be priced normal.
No kid. And it's like, and for milk not to be priced like it's Alaskan milk or something.
Yes.
You know?
From a golden cow.
Like, they get a stipend for how much stuff is up there if they're in the Coast Guard or something. The rest of us in the lower 48 have to pay for that puppy.
Well, I'm waiting for it to be mid-World War, where you go to a restaurant and potatoes are a delicacy.
You have 2 ounces of cheese this week.
That's it.
You allowed 2 ounces of cheese this week. Would you like some time with your taters? Ugh. Is it fresh? No. It's the crusty, flaky, dry crap. Jeez, man. But they're terrified. And they have, like I told you from the jump, the plan was always, they have had this plan. Democratic senators openly talk about it in D.C. right now. It's not even they don't even hide it. The only thing is that they feel that if they're going to do it, they got to do it right. But Merrick Garland turned out to be the biggest chump and the most dangerous attorney general. This was a man Barack Obama put forward as a moderate ideologue for the Supreme Court. And Mitch McConnell was made into a monster who wouldn't even let this moderate get a hearing. As it turns out, he is way more dangerous anyway, because he's just a chump. He's a spineless little coward who does whatever he's told. I don't think Merrick Garland's an ideologue. I just think he's somebody's you know what.
All right, just stop. That's so wrong.
He's been getting calls from about a half a dozen senators. He takes them. They've been pressuring him to open up the investigation. They basically, in a call last week, said, there's enough there. We have found you sufficient evidence to prosecute Donald Trump for assisting in an insurrection. Understand they want to arrest a former president and charge him with sedition because they cannot beat him at the ballot box. Do you understand what I'm saying? The words that are actually coming out of my mouth? That is no different than the monstrous, murderous regimes of the 20th century. Hitler, Stalin, Mao, Pol Pot. They all used the police power, right, in their regime, in their states, to persecute and prosecute their political enemies based on some trumped up, fabricated garbage. And the worst part about it is they got this Soros-bought AG in New York. If they would apply the law fairly instead of arbitrarily, then Hillary Clinton would have been arrested a long time ago for financial crimes. A long time ago. The truth is, Schneiderman, at the time, was the Attorney General. He knew they were not in compliance with New York law. He let it go. PricewaterhouseCoopers, Deloitte and Touche, an internal investigation, all found that they were not only that they were not in compliance and were breaking the law, but they found that Schneiderman's office just looked the other way. And Schneiderman was enriched, by the way, for doing so. We can't have the crooks themselves prosecuting other people for the crimes they commit in order to keep power in perpetuity. If every time one side gets a candidate that can win, and these crooks go after them for some ridiculous crime, because believe me, if there was anything in Trump's financials, ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Weissman would have found it. So they're really going to go out on a limb here. The Trumps are being persecuted because their political opponents are afraid of them. They are resolved that they cannot beat Donald Trump in 2024. As a pollster, again, I would never have believed I would be finding leads this big for Donald Trump. They know we're right. Their own pollsters have dominant advantages for him. And they're terrified he's going to get back in and pull a Grover Cleveland, which I think is really the best analogy, because Grover Cleveland was very much an anti-establishment Boardman Democrat, governor of New York, was from New York, knew how the machine worked, and tried to fight it, but the machine threw him out. And you should look it up, research it. Threw him out for free silver, for a gimmick. And they crashed the economy just like they're crashing it now. It's just the parallel is really incredible. But the elites tried to enrich themselves over it. And the country had to beg Grover Cleveland to come back and clean up the mess. The establishment stopped him from effectively serving out his first. He did serve it, but he didn't get as much done as he was trying or wanted or could have gotten done, because at every turn, the corrupt establishment hindered Grover Cleveland from doing the right thing. But the man was above reproach. You couldn't buy him. You couldn't bribe him. And no matter what you did, you couldn't punk him to turn against the promise that he made to voters, to the people of the country. No matter how much pressure they gave this man, he never flip-flopped. And eventually they said, this guy's got to go. And for those who don't know, the old Bourbon Democrats were laissez-faire Democrats. They believed in capitalism and the virtue of capitalism, and the virtue that's necessary for true capitalism, by the way, which is a totally different conversation. And he came in a time where the country was trying to change. It was the very beginning of an attempt to try to get senators to direct elections instead of dealing with legislatures. It was, selling favored status. Anyway, the only reason why it happened is because they crashed. Yeah, they tried to blame the crash on him. They tried. In 1893. They absolutely did, but it just didn't work. And by the way, he did come back and fix it. Some people, some people just can't help themselves. They just can't help themselves.
That's sad.
Yeah. But they do it for out of some love of the country or whatever. The worst part about what they did to Donald Trump is, who is going to ever, if they were to have gotten away with this, and they do this, who is ever going, who's not a bought and paid for scumbag, who is ever going to do that again, to put themselves out there, to risk their brand, their name, their reputation, and now their freedom? It's more than just risking your career. Now. And the FBI has proven themselves to, very willing to be the secret police for the Democratic Party. So who in their right mind? They're essentially trying to make it, folks, so no good people want to represent you. It's a scumbag from the machine, or it's nothing at all. And that's sad. But nobody should support these efforts to prosecute Donald Trump. If you do, you're a narrow-minded, short-sighted idiot. And normally I respect everybody's opinions, but not on this. If you're too small-minded and angry, usually it's anger that drives your clouded reason, clouds your reason. If you're too angry to see the implications, then you're a danger to self-governance. Sorry. I don't really at all respect your opinion on this. I've been doing this now for 5 years. Collusion is fake. The dossier is fake. Don't let them do this. This leads to bad places. It smells like the end of the Roman Republic. The British Empire. Like Laura and I were talking about this the other day. The parallels right now that you can draw to the fall of pre-empire, post or during at the fall of the Roman Republic era. We're not just talking about the entire empire, right? There was a republic once. There was a dream. It was Rome, blah, 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 right? Even Periclean democracy, but less so than like the British Empire, same thing in addition to Rome. The parallels that you can draw between us right now and their demises. And back then, there were people like Cicero in Rome. It was like, stop, please, use your reason. Use your reason. Put aside your petty partisanship. Put aside your petty politics. Put aside your immorality. Use your reason. Beg them. Beg them. What do you get for it, by the way? What was Cicero's fate? Same was true with the early, Democrats in Greece. Warner's one of them. Murphy's another one. Schumer himself. If I actually have a list, I'm afraid to. I will tweet out a list. I think it's Nuncy25 who asked who the specific senators are. I imagine you mean who were the ones who were calling Merrick Garland, right? The little chump who turned out just to be a total puppet. Remember when the Justice Department was supposed to be independent? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Free from influence. And oh my God, if Donald Trump picked up a phone call and spoke to Jeff Sessions or said Jeff Sessions should recuse himself or asked William Barr to do something, it was like, oh my God, impeach? You remember that?
Yeah.
The hell happened to that? First of all, the truth is the Justice Department was never independent. This is a fabrication of a modern political class who is trying to insulate their own permanence as a government from voter accountability. The Justice Department is the executive branch. The executive branch, the boss, is the president. The president is held accountable by the voters. Thus, the president has to hold everyone else in the executive branch accountable. You don't have independence. There is no prosecutor in the country, like Robert Mueller, special prosecutor. So what? Donald Trump could have fired him any given point he wanted. And he would have been well within his legal and constitutional right to do so. So watch me not flip-flop here. Now that Joe Biden is president, he owns Merrick Garland's butt. Merrick Garland is a subordinate to Joe Biden. But can we just say Team Biden because Joe Biden isn't doing anything? Can we just drop the pretenses? We need a new word, guys. Should just call him Team Biden, right? Should we just call him Team Biden? Because it's not Joe. Joe is gone, man. Is he doing his press conference yet? It's a nasty woman, Jen Psaki, yesterday. It's a nasty woman. The New York Post journalist. Who exactly did you meet with? You blew the testing regime. Who did you meet with? Who told you to get this done? And it didn't get done because the Vanity Fair article is very clear. It showed that they're just not doing their jobs. They were told to get ready for the new year and Omicron with the new testing regime. Tests are garbage. She doesn't answer the question.
No,
he said, who did I answered that? Maybe you weren't listening or you were getting. You nasty
witch with a W.
Witch
Thank
with
you.
a W. Maybe you're a dishonest piece of garbage. You didn't answer the question, Jen. The reason why she didn't want to ask them is because she didn't want the New York Post to have the names of those people so they could go chase them down and get quotes from them. I told the president to do this. He fell asleep for his afternoon nap and probably forgot. And by the time he woke up the next day,
or the answer was not in his teleprompter, so he glitched.
I told Laura yesterday, I feel like we just deserve this. I mean, Jefferson, the government you elect is the government you deserve.
But I didn't elect this government.
Well, you didn't, but I'm saying we did collectively.
I know. the laziness of the civil.
We allowed, and for people who
Civic
even say,
people.
the election, they don't trust, how I feel about that too, folks. But we still allowed this to happen, did we not? We allowed them. You realize the state of Pennsylvania never even had mailing or early voting before 2020? Wisconsin barely had absentee voting. Michigan barely had absentee voting.
Mhm.
These states didn't want it. If they were up for a referendum right now, they'd go down. Especially in Pennsylvania. People don't like it. I've asked. Allegedly elected Gaylord. I know. But I'm saying the point is we still allowed it to get to that point.
Yes.
I'm yelling about it 2 months of podcasts. I'm yelling about it.
Preemptively.
Trying to
before.
preempt it.
I know.
And we elected cowardly people who don't fight back. Which is another thing I got to talk to you about. We need a whole show on what's going on in California. What happened in California.
Amen.
We need a whole show on how the Republican Party in California is like a battered wife. And they're just so used to getting their you-know-what's kicked that they just try to appease the abusive husband.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We need a whole damn show on that,
Mhm.
All right. Let me take a 30-second break, get some more water. And then we'll go back to seeing what questions we're going to dump. All right. Sound good? All right. Give me 30 seconds to get some water. Everybody wish Pete Buttigieg a happy 13th birthday. Okay? Happy 13 years old, Pete. Yeah, so Laura was like, she wanted me to answer some questions. That is what I wanted for those who are asking the questions about the Rasmussen poll. That's kind of what I want to talk about now, actually. So I don't want to answer them without like doing the poll myself. Oh, look, see, we're already comfortable expressing political beliefs, and I only got rid of one question. Oof. Okay, let's go back. Let's dump Kamala out of here. We don't need a Trump versus Kamala. Trump would kill Kamala. End of story.
Let's just say the only poll that Kamala's good at is
Oh!
in the club.
Oh!
In the club. In the club. You see? I wasn't being that bad.
I'm sorry.
You needed it.
I did need that. I had a really long night, ladies and gentlemen. A really long night. Oh, boy. All right, let's get rid of Kamala. She's out of here. Bye, Kamala. We just simply don't need that. You want to ask a Republican primary question? But that's adding another question. I do want to start. Well, we're not at the midterms yet. Let's wait for the midterms. You guys are funny as hell. I see you.
I'm sorry. I can't help it. I detest that woman so bad.
I know
because the fact that she's the vice president and she's the
an
first
idiot.
vice president that's a woman.
I'm sorry. She's an idiot.
Hurts me to the core.
I'm sorry. I really I can't.
She
I'm always
ruined it.
I always try to be impartial, but sometimes there's just a truth. It's not really a matter of opinion. Joe Biden is incompetent. He's mentally handicapped, and Kamala Harris is an idiot.
Mhm.
She's another person older than Pete Buttigieg, but very similar situation. She did not get to where she was on the merit. All right, and she's got the scars to prove it. You know what those scars are?
So many.
Yo, Robert, he had the funniest picture.
Oh yes.
It was a distorted, smudged face. And I'm like, he's not going to do it. He did it.
I know. he did.
He
I was
did it.
like, oh my word. I mean, I know I'm bad, but that was just wrong.
Let's get rid of ranking the issue. Let's start to see what, because I could always add them back real easy. Let's see what they look like. I really think these questions about issues are very, very important. So instead of answering questions about the Rasmussen poll, maybe we'll just try some ourselves. What's this? See, that's a problem. It's 90 characters long. It wants me to shorten that. An answer that's over 90 characters long. When you get these, you best listen to them. All right. Gizmo developed that, they're Alchemar now. They developed that at several requests too, by the way, and it's cool and it's worth using. Let's see if there's a way I can make that smaller. I could just say mitigation policies to contain the pandemic are getting too strict. They're not strict enough. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Or just saying are too strict. Strict enough. I don't know. I'm gonna think about this. It's like I feel like we kind of need to put in there the implications to those policies. Or maybe I prioritize strict mitigation policies over freedoms and the economy. I prioritize freedom and the economy over strict mitigation policies.
What about their choice, the strictness, and just right, but priorities aren't?
Yeah, maybe. Specifically, which would you say comes closer to your view? Mitigation policies to contain the pandemic are too strict. Mitigation policies aren't strict enough. Mitigation policies to contain the pandemic are just about right. Huh. Or what I could say is specifically regarding coronavirus vaccinations mandates, which would you say comes closer to your view regarding mitigation policies to contain the pandemic? And then what they're trying to suggest will make more sense. But I totally understand what they're trying to suggest. Are too strict. Yeah, I like it. Aren't strict enough. I'm still going to think about it, but I think they're better. They're on the right track. Let's also take a look at the booster question because it may be from the question library. And when we first started it, they weren't widely available. You remember? I have no plans to get vaccine. I have no plans to get the booster. I have already received the booster. Okay, that's in there. I intend to get the booster. I have no plans to get the booster. Listen, you got a serious problem when people who did take 2 doses, a quarter of them say they're not getting the booster. And I think at some point, how many boosters are we up to now? Are we? It's just 1, right? Only 1 is widely available. I just want to be clear about that. I'm going to have to do some research on that. Okay. And then we have this. We also, in the Registered Voter Economic Confidence Index, where are you? We need to add some questions about the availability of goods. All right. Yes.
we could just call this section economic confidence. Do the index. And then some questions about whether or not they were able to find the goods they were looking for. Because there's just no way. There's just no way this is some isolated problem. All right, so we got to think about that one. So what do we got so far, guys? We got questions about shelves, at least one question about the availability and affordability of goods. Whether or not the extent to which people are willing to go when it comes to the unvaccinated. And then what was the other one, Laura? There was one we were missing. Somebody had said something, mentioned something. Really, what I try to do, guys, is look like how many people are suggesting roughly the same thing. What's more popular? And what was the most popular was about bare shelves. And definitely once this Rasmussen poll came out, people wanted to know whether it was true Democrats really were.
It was inflation. It was.
Yeah, we're going to have that, though. I mean, look, the economic confidence index, that deals with inflation. Expectations regarding total family income 6 months from now. I bet you this index is going to be worse. I don't know. We'll see. My prediction is that it's going to be worse. I don't know how much worse it could get, but this index was designed not to do what it did in the beginning of the summer, which was totally collapse. Right? What was it, June when it collapsed, I think? Something around there. Okay, why don't you, while I take a sip of water, why don't you give me some
questions?
Any related to the questionnaire?
Yeah, I have some of those. Gotta go to where I was. All right. Where are you? All right. So we'd love to see a question about TP. Is it under or over? Oh, never mind. Then showing how unpopular McCarthy versus McConnell.
Yep, we're gonna get that. I guess we'll get that. Yeah.
Love to see questions on how voters see New York Trump investigation.
I'm not sure enough of them will know about it yet.
Yeah.
Maybe just the general idea of whether people think that the efforts to prosecute Trump are political or not. Even January 6th, do you think the investigation into what happened on January 6th at the Capitol and other investigations related to Donald Trump are motivated by politics or are they legitimate?
And
I can go and look and see.
You wanted to, Air Chamber wanted to know how can we better separate politics from science?
Oh yeah. That's a good question. It's not, that's not survey related, but
actually, I think that should be a survey question.
Yeah, I think the first thing we need to do, sadly, is remove the roles that these agencies play. Because you have somebody like a Dr. Fauci who gets into the National Institute of Health, and then he starts picking and choosing what is and what isn't going to be considered legitimate research. He destroys people's reputations with the power that he has because everybody is too afraid to speak out against him when he's clearly wrong. Why? Because they'll be marginalized. That's number one. They could be the target of his smear campaign, like we have seen him do now. By the way, this is not the first time that he has done this. He did it with AIDS too, by the way. There were people who thought his drug for AIDS was dangerous, DZT, and that the DZT itself was hurting people. I went back and read some of the old studies. They were ridiculous. And it was further ridiculous because the control group that was supposed to be getting the placebo was sneaking the DZT from the people who were getting DZT. So it's just a total joke. I mean, so that's one part of it. And then two, we really need, I don't know, it's a tough question. Maybe we need a law that protects dissenters.
I like that.
And that
should there be a law written to protect. Yeah.
In the end, though, this comes down to our own culture, our own values. Once upon a time, most people understood the danger of silencing those who disagree. I don't know how long it's been since many of you have been in academia, whether it's science, whether it is mathematics. The politics are totally out of control. Even what universities get what grants for scientific research. If you're engaging in certain behavior, which is clearly of a partisan nature, then maybe you shouldn't be eligible for those grants. Or maybe everyone should be like Hillsdale and just pay their own damn way and not take government money. Maybe you should just learn how to survive on your own. Maybe you should afford or offer a product that's worth paying all that damn money for. Hillsdale doesn't take anything. It's the only way that they are not subjected to the federal government's ridiculous, I hate to say it, like affirmative action.
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. Should the unvaccinated start being referred to as the control group? They are the proof of a failed vaccine experiment.
Well, I mean, honestly, even if you remember the clip that I played of Dr. Fauci when he didn't realize he was going to be clipped and put on YouTube, he is talking about the unvaccinated as the control group. He's talking about this entire thing as if it's one big experiment. In fact, hold on. Let's play it.
20 years ago, and it was for any vaccine that we wanted to make. You would say a vaccine from the time you start to the time it's approved to be safe and effective is several years, 5, 6, 7 years. That's unacceptable for now. So what happened is that as soon as we got the sequence of the virus from the Chinese, we pulled it out of the public database and stuck the gene into a vaccine platform and worked on it literally within a day of when it came out. 65 days later, namely 2 days ago, we gave the first injection to a normal volunteer for a phase 1 trial to see if it's safe. That's the fastest that's ever been done. That's the good news. The challenging news is that even at that rocket speed, it's going to take a few months to show that the initial safety is okay. Then you go into a phase 2 trial, which instead of involving 45 people, which we have in the phase 1 trial, it involves hundreds, if not thousands of people. That will take another 6 to 8 months to even know if it works. So at the fastest we can go, it's going to take a year to a year and a half to know if we have a vaccine that we can use. There's another element to safety, and that is if you vaccinate someone and they make an antibody response, and then they get exposed and infected, does the response that you induce actually enhance the infection and make it worse? And the only way you'll know that is if you do an extended study, not in a normal volunteer who has no risk of infection, but in people who are out there in a risk situation. This would not be the first time, if it happened, that a vaccine that looked good in initial safety actually made people worse. There was the history of the respiratory syncytial virus vaccine in children, which paradoxically made the children worse. One of the HIV vaccines that we tested several years ago actually made individuals more likely to get.
He smeared people who said that the tested vaccine for HIV was making people worse. Dr. Fauci at the time smeared physicians who argued that the vaccine was actually hurting people who were HIV positive, okay? Or people who had developed AIDS. So that's number one. I want to just point that out because that's historically, there's some parallels here. Are there not? And then secondly, what he is saying is that he doesn't want an experiment like this. What he was saying is that there is a possibility that the vaccine initially looks good, 6 to 8 months, we won't know, which is, right around the first time, the first double dose,
was clear that it needed a booster. That's that period he's saying. In 6 to 8 months, we'll find out whether or not it even works. But it can't be done in a volunteer, he's saying, like a vaccine study. It has to be done with people that are out there. So the unvaccinated in this case, out of his own mouth, is the control group. Then he goes on to say that it is possible, and he says the word, now the challenge is, or the good news is, and then the challenge is, right? Well, you mean the good news and the bad news, don't you? That's what you mean. You just don't want to say that. But the challenge, the bad news, is that it was possible in his mind then that those who have vaccine-induced immunity not only will lead to variants, but also what he is saying is that they will get sicker eventually than people who don't. It's possible, he's saying.
And cause more variants.
I would just point out the large study that I shared recently. And I think I don't know, click off, but I did share it to locals. And it's on my Twitter too. You just got to scroll down. 68 nations, almost every single U.S. county. And what they found with Omicron is that those who have a higher population of vaccinated, in fact, saw higher numbers of infections per 1 million, So, I'll leave you to decide. And this idea, we hear all these people complaining now, all these, so-called health officials complaining about all of these hospitalizations on the rise. It simply is not true that they're being bombarded by people who are unvaccinated. That's simply not true. The other day, I spoke to a physician. 78% of her positive COVID tests were vaccinated people. 78%. So this idea, well, it'll prevent disease. We went from that to it'll prevent serious disease and long-term effects. At least with Omicron, the latest, and with Lambda, by the way, it was also true with Lambda. We just kind of, because it wasn't dominant here, it was South America, but we just let that kind of slide. In those cases, vaccine-induced immunity ended up being, or at least it suggested, when you compare the groups, that vaccine-induced immunity ended up actually being a liability in those strains.
I also have a question. If people are losing their food choices at the store, how quickly and likely will they lash out? So that would actually be a good question. Like, are you more likely to vote for a party because of this, and this, and this? Like, trying to figure out where those people lie.
Yeah, I mean, I think
ultimately, yes, it is going to affect the Democratic Party.
I think we could cross those people who say, that food and groceries is the reason why they picked inflation.
And who do you think would be more successful at?
Yeah, well, there comes a point where we could discuss whether or not after we ask the generic ballot, who do people trust more on these issues? I have tended to I asked that in 2022. But I tended always, Laura, to really favor just simply crossing most important issues with vote preference. So how many among people who chose jobs in the economy, among people who chose inflation, among people who chose coronavirus, you can cross that with the generic ballot, for instance, or 2024 hypothetical rematch. And from there, you can see who is really winning on which issues. From there, it tells you, basically, who do you trust more? It's almost like the trust thing it's a little redundant, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But how quickly will people lash out? I think pretty damn quickly.
Yes.
I mean, from what I saw yesterday, I mean, there were not just that we were there talking to managers, employees. It was more than that. You could hear the dissatisfaction of the customers around you. Right? I mean, it's maybe because they would probably, we were talking on the floor. They could hear the conversation. I would say maybe 1 out of 2 would vocally say something.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot. And everybody seems to blame Biden, which is possibly a question we could ask in addition. So how do you, have you found things? Have you not been able to find things? Are they too much? And then who do you blame for this? Who do you think bears the most responsibility for this? That's probably the best way. I think that will be more telling, because I bet you there'll be a bunch of people who say they blame Biden, but then they're not going to tell you who they're going to vote for on the generic ballot or something. And then that'll be something that we can really look at. Like, are there really 6% undecided? Can we look at them? And then even cross them with the social desirability indicators. And it's like, 70% of people who say they're uncomfortable talking to pollsters also said they blame Biden, but didn't give an answer for the generic ballot or something. That's a lot of juicy nuggets you could pull out of it. Well, damn, it's 1 o'clock already. Sorry for the rocky start.
With the 30% of kids getting taken.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of, we'll have to continue and follow up this. I mean, that's the second, I think there really are some questions that maybe still can be dumped. I don't know, but we'll add them and we'll see where we're at. I don't want a 9-minute interview, which means something's going to have to go. It's going to be more important to ask, maybe favorabilities due in the end. I don't know yet. I'm leaving it on there, but I want to know whether or not there really is a large percentage of Democrats in this country who think they should take children away from parents. Look,
I'll tell you now,
my own personal opinion is the opposite, the exact opposite. If you get your 5 to 11-year-old jabbed and they don't have an underlying condition, that you're letting your own irrational fear put your child at potential risk. You see what happened in Japan, right?
Now they're actually labeling,
yeah.
I can't say the name of the heart.
5 to 11-year-olds are not at risk from COVID. There's not. This idea, Sonia Sotomayor will not go back into the court because Justice Gorsuch won't put a face mask on. You got to see this fool. She's remote with a face mask and a mask. I mean, a face shield and a mask. She's a total Mary. And by the way, everyone who wants Clarence Thomas to recuse because of his wife and these, what they think are connections with Bannon and blah, blah, blah. I mean, yeah, sure. Right when Sonia Sotomayor recuses herself from any immigration-related case, when she recuses herself from any COVID-related case because she's clearly a Karen, all right? When Kay Hagan recuses herself from anything related to DOMA or gay marriage when we went through that. Why? Because what is Kay Hagan's persuasion? Ridiculous. Yeah, you got to see her. Working remotely. I'm not kidding. She's got a mask and a shield on. And she actually said there are 100,000 incredibly sick children hospitalized right now or something. This is the crazy thing about people when we have polled and Gallup and others. When you cross who really believes this nonsense, this fear porn. These are like educated people. That's a scary thing about, like, Sotomayor, you may, like her, not like her, agree with her, disagree with her. It's not in dispute that she's an educated woman. And yet she believes straight up lies. Fear porn. She believes it. Just like people still believe the asymptomatic shtick. Like, they don't know the problem with PCR tests. Educated people. They don't know kids don't carry high viral loads. They don't know pneumonia is way more dangerous. And on and on and on. All right, with that in mind, we'll have to follow this up. Definitely on locals too. We're going to have to, I'll put it out now. I'll show you what we got now. Let's kick around some ideas about how we're going to phrase some of these questions, okay? And then also later, if I potentially have time later, locals, I'd really like to try to, look what happened with StreamYard today. I'd really like to potentially test out Wirecast and these different. Same thing goes for Getter, because instead of sending it to like Restream or StreamYard or something, whatever it is, want to go directly to them with individual things. I think that may be the better way to do it. But we'll find out. And I have to test it. So we'll be doing that hopefully later today. All right. with that in mind, that's it. Time really does fly, even when you're exhausted and you're still having fun.
True story.
And
We
sorry for
always
the
love
first
hanging out with
20
you guys.
minutes or whatever without a camera. But figured it out with the old virtual cam through Wirecast. Follow us on Getter at People's Pundit. Right there on my profile. You can follow Laura if you want. And she's always a good follow. And of course, if you're watching on YouTube, give us a like. If you like the video, give us that thumbs up. Subscribe. Hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. A lot of stuff through Rumble, of course. So go ahead and give us a little plus sign, Rumble, whatever it is, and subscribe over there too. It's just easier to connect the community, which is peoplespundit.locals.com. You can always find the community right there on Rumble. Every time you're watching a Rumble video, my community link is right there. All right. And of course, as always, the merch. Laura put up a new one, represent.com/peoplespundit/accuracy matters. And they're cool. It's what many of you said you wanted, the accuracy matters thing.
And
So
I
we got it.
listened.
All right. All right. I am going to kick rocks and get out of here.
As always, thank you for your
As
time.
always. Yep.
We appreciate all your love and support, and we will always give you as much accuracy as we can
possibly
dish out.
do. Yeah, that's it. All right, folks. Have a safe day if you are in the wintry mix.
Be blessed.
All right. Be blessed. We'll see you soon.
Deuces.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Get on a plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Deuces.